Suraj is the lead UX designer at JioTesseract. He'll be taking you to a lot of customer journeys and how we kind of approach the overall development in JioTesseract. And Devesh will share his experience and insights. Then we'll have Ishika. She leads developer growth alongside with me, and she'll be taking you through the application submission guidelines and the way you have to submit your applications for evaluation here. And we welcome you all. And without any further ado, we'll get started. So, Suraj, if you would like to share your screen and get started, maybe let's get started.
Yeah, sure, Anu. Customer journey. So what do we mean by here? A customer journey is basically we plan out the steps for a particular feature or an aspect that a user needs to perform. So what happens mostly is when we get a brief or when we get an idea of what we have to develop as a designer or as a developer, we have a tendency to directly jump into maybe like a designer who wants to jump into page design, or if a developer wants to directly get into the meaty stuff of developing that feature quickly or making a mechanism first. But as a result, what happens in that is most of the things are developed in isolation, and then we are mostly never sure that if they are going to combine in a wholesome manner. And what this lacks as a whole is the customer experience part. So this is where we employ the concept of customer journey, where before getting into the whole actual development and designing the specific portions, we first try to map out where the user starts to achieve at or arrive at that particular thing that we were trying to build. So as it's mentioned here, it is basically normally we do a visual representation, which is mostly a flow diagram, and the most important part over here is the entry and the exit point. So
yeah, Suraj, just 1 second. So guys, just wanted to be a bit more. I think everybody, they're all sort of like silent assassins inside this sort of call. So by the way, I'm Devesh here. So before even Suraj goes ahead, just with a quick raise of hands, how many of you guys have heard of customer journeys or user flows before and are also sort of actively ensuring that they use this while their application, during the application, either development or design or any sort of feature planning? So I see a couple of hands. I think 9 out of 42 have 12 now, maybe increasing dheere dheere karke. But yeah, so fair amount of you guys, and I'm assuming the rest have either maybe are a bit too lazy to raise their hands, or they've generally not sort of done it. So so straight up, it's sort of one of those things. I mean, of course, you have the definition on the page here, but straight up, it's one of those things that, in a way, there are a lot of things in life which we should be doing, but we don't end up doing just because it's maybe either uncomfortable or we don't have the time, or we are not sort of ready for that yet, such as either going to the gym or saving money, right? We all want to do it, but just sometimes becomes too difficult. But we all know it's the right thing to do. And in fact, mapping customer journeys is precisely like that. And coming and just to sort of give you a quick idea about why did we think about this webinar in the first place, was we saw a lot of those builds that came to us, and they were wonderful. Like a lot of them were really awesome out of the whole park, and we really loved enjoying. We really loved and enjoyed playing them on JioGlass, and sort of were sort of very thrilled to have these experiences coming in. But we also, to a certain level, felt that some of them were sort of lacking some sort of a basic sort of standpoint on how is the customer going to eventually use it. So that's why throughout this presentation, just try to reflect back into what your application lifecycle is, how you are developing the apps today, be it for JioGlass or for anything else at all, and just keep sort of checking and sort of yourself, and sort of posting questions here if you feel something is maybe difficult to apply in your particular case, or you feel otherwise, that you know what, you guys are sort of, you guys are doing a very bullshit seminar today, this is not right, it's not how it's supposed to be done, just let us know in the comments, and we'll sort of keep either answering those in between, or we can take them all up in the very end also. So just wanted to get that. I think you guys can put your hands down now. But I'm glad to see a lot of people are aware and sort of use this in their daily development as well. Yeah. So sorry, Suraj, for cutting you off. You will proceed.
No, fine. Thank you for that, Devesh. Okay, so as Devesh mentioned over here, so we already, a lot of people already know about customer journey, but still let's go a little further into it. So what does a customer journey tells us, and how it helps us in planning out our steps? So basically, it ideally tells us who is the user, an ideal user of the product. And to give you an example, like there are different kinds of user for a particular journey also. There can be an admin, or there can be a client. So all these different profiles can have different journeys, maybe to just do the same action. So when we define the customer journey, we also define who the user is, and based on that, what their goals are, we can understand what steps to be taken. So normally customer journeys are plotted out in two forms. So one is the task flow, as you can see over here. So mostly task flow is what we follow here at Tesseract. So because the second one is wire flows. Now wire flows are ideally more compatible for anything which has a defined screen, maybe for something like an XR or XR type thing. Wire flows are mostly like a storyboard. So we can design storyboard and connect the story points over there. But since we do that in XD anyways, so to plan out, we go with the task flow method. Now, why do we basically go for a customer journey? So here are some certain advantages. It right away gives a clear communication of what the action is meant to be and how it is meant to be achieved. It makes it easier for our discussions with all the stakeholders, and it keeps our focus on users. Basically, we tend to have a bias over how things are done, what our mental models are. But as we define users beforehand, we can design and plan the flow according to the user, what have been defined. Most of the time we tend to miss what are different entry points and exit points, because many times a certain flows can have multiple entries and can have multiple exits also. And also we can define different system interactions and also different user types also. So it is a very useful tool to, especially for any kind of complicated application. Since it is also like a flow chart, we can also plot all the decision points, and it also gives a good discussion platform of debating why some decisions are being made and what decisions maybe a user can take, and we can have multiple branching out flows from that. So basically the customer journey module that we use over here, that is to break the whole process into a chunkable parts, so that we can later on go into a granular format and keep a track of all the actions which are required. So how exactly we do over here is we start from basically listing down all the requirements, and what we create is a feature list. Now this can be sufficed with different things like a user story board or maybe a PRD document, but we start from collecting what requirements are there and what requirements there can be. So based on that, we club some requirements on similarities and functionalities and what flows into a different kind of requirement or steps together. And from there, we develop a basic customer journey flow. Now, these customer journeys are very useful to take feedbacks from customers and stakeholders. And these are, because these are at very macro and high level, it is easier to go back to feature list and maybe do some hygiene check in our what features are we considering, are they useful, are they too much, or have we missed something, and how they are related into each other, are they correct or not. So we can come back and make a fresh customer journey. So once after we get good feedback from customers and stakeholders, and we have a solidified high level customer journey, from there we go into much more granular fragmentation of these customer journeys, which is represented in form of an information architecture. And again, after that, once we are happy with this, our information architecture, we move ahead and translate those architecture into our wireframe format. And here in wireframe format, basically it's a very low fidelity basic level design where we can test out for certain functionalities. So in few moments we are going to show you, demonstrate of detailed view of an example with one of our apps. And once our wireframes have been completed and been approved, we move on to our visual design. And after visual design, it's obviously a time for a design handoff where we give all the specifications and interaction module, and then it goes to dev.
Yeah. Just cutting you off, Suraj, one bit. So this particular side, guys, if for this next, for the past 15 minutes and for the next 45 minutes, if there's just one slide that you want to have a sort of take a snapshot of and sort of remember, I think this would be one in a very sort of broad sense. The key idea here, the thing that you notice is that the customer or the stakeholder is always kept in the center of the entire process, because eventually whatever we are doing, we are not doing it for ourselves. We are doing it for the customers, and eventually then they will like sort of pay us and make us rich or whatever we want and make us sort of famous. So it's the power is with them eventually. So there's no point in sort of designing or developing or prototyping something that you like but maybe your customers don't like. So that's why there is a lot of feedback checks. And additionally, the whole process here, this might feel like it's a very waterfallish or it's a one by one process, but it's not actually. Every sort of stage in between has feedback going back and forth, and it all sort of ends, finally when this the thing that you see, which is a UAT or an NPS score, which the customer or the stakeholder gives on that development, which then again sort of makes us go back to any of these stages and sort of do some more refinement and sort of come back. So it all starts from a simple Excel to the application, obviously, but the key idea here is that all the decisions, they are not really ours as such. They are more taken and driven by the customers and by the stakeholders at whatever level possible. So that's the essential key takeaway from all of this. Yeah, go ahead. Suraj, you can proceed. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, so we can move on to show the feature list examples, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to switch my window right now to give you an example of feature list, how we have populated. So like we have an application of TV Plus, and this is the feature list of that. So we have enlisted the basic feature that we have identified, and based on that, all the requirements are there. Eventually, when we reach at the stage of wireframing and creating those things in XD, we linked our pages over here also. So how we use this is, if you see, these are different kind of actions that are required for a particular action, but those all come under one single story or a journey. So here, like a login page, then a splash screen, a home page. So these are basically like a laundry list or a roster of all the pages. Now what we do from here is we identify the pages that go into a flow for a particular action, and from there we develop our customer journey. So like for example, in this case, the 3 customer journeys that we have identified is the base high level customer journey is one, the sign up journey. What screens would be encompassing this, what actions a user needs to take, that what are different routes to achieve a proper sign up or a login. Then what happens at a home page, or basically a video playback. So once you have once a user have logged in, what steps needs to be taken or ideal user would take to reach till a video playback. And like a third would be the search. So these are the 3 high level customer journey that we have identified. And so these goes for our stakeholder feedback, and once these are approved and we have tested it and it feels like these are ideal number of steps to be taken, we then go ahead and fragment into our detailed information architecture. So as you will see, even for the it is similar to our customer journey, where we had the home page and we have all these steps that the user take, which are again captured in this like home page, and then you go for next step, and then how do you search for a content, and eventually you land at a video player. So this is basically much more granular form of that customer journey.
And so the idea here, guys, is that you get your entire feedback or a chunk of your feedback during the customer journey phase, because that's a very sort of boiled down key steps that a user takes. These are also, or these are also sort of referred to. We identify some key customer journeys out of all the customer journeys, and generally in applications there are not more than 3 to 5 key customer journeys. If you cannot boil your application down to maybe 3, or at a very maximum if the app is very complex, then 5 key customer journeys, then you may be doing something wrong, or you may need to sort of reprioritize your sort of application. So this is where you get the most amount of feedback, whether you've captured the actual users flow in the right manner or not, whether there is something missing here, or something that you would like to either edit, add, subtract, or delete. And once you have a decent understanding of this, that what this is, what probably my customer is going to do as soon as they start at one point of the journey and sort of go through it and end at the other end, then you start doing the IA, which is a much more granular, much more detailed individual pieces of where do each button, or where do each feature, or where do each action actually is mapped to a particular screen. The other advantage of doing it this way, rather than just jumping to the information architecture directly from the feature list, is so that you can know which button should come first. For example, which button should be on the center of your screen, which button can be on the left side or somewhere hidden, or not sort of in the center of the screen. Which buttons should have some sort of a primary sort of color, or sort of a higher sort of emphasis on that. So all of that is defined by this, because that the customer, although he can do a forget password while he's doing signing up, that's not your key journey. Your key journey is always about logging in or signing up. So that's why you will always see that forget password is a small text without any emphasis, or without much emphasis, or without much importance. It's because it's an additional step that the user is taking. Not that you don't have to consider that. You have to consider that as well. Those are the other customer journeys that you come up with, but you always start with these keywords, and that helps to sort of give shape to your application, in a sense that you are sort of nudging the user to do a certain action which is going to eventually benefit either your business, or or even sort of get him more engaged with your particular application, or with your particular content. Yeah. Go ahead, Suraj. I think you're on mute again.
Yeah, Suraj,
Yeah.
just unmute yourself when you want to talk.
Sure. Okay, so why this is important to us is because we take these as a story point, which needs to have a start and an end, so that we are clear from where a user has entered that journey and what is the end point, and we make sure that we have not left the user hanging in anywhere. So like everything, every action, every flow has a closer. So this is why this step is kind of important to us. Okay, moving on. information architecture we just saw. Okay, so once we have completed with our information architecture and we have done our design, so we take certain steps to communicate our design to key stakeholders. So like a standard practice, we design everything in XD prototype, even if it is a 3D design. Sometimes we just make those renders and put it in XD and link it up. And we have these as shareable content so that anyone can give their feedbacks. Devesh, do we show some of the XDs?
Yeah, I think you can just open the TV Plus XD and quickly just show a couple of pages.
Okay.
We are running on time as of now, so we can do it.
Okay. Okay, I'll just show this one. So since we are designing for a very wide field of view, we take a very wide artboard and design for a left side and the right side, which encompasses for the head movement also. And
just open the prototype.
Yeah, just going for that. Oops, sorry. I need to select this. Yeah.
Also, just one thing. So one thing that you guys will notice here. So this is already an XD guide that we had shared with you. As part of the earlier releases. It's all still there in one of those folders. So this prototype file is there with you, which will sort of help you also if in case you want to incorporate this process to sort of use this. And the thing that you will see is that there's a small pink dotted line, which sort of or like a square, or a rectangle rather, which goes across, and this is what defines the field of view of what the person sees in one go through JioGlass. So what this helps to also demark for us when we are testing it out is to see कि okay एक बार में इतना दिखेगा, and everything else which is overflowing beyond it will be only visible if the person moves to the left and right. So it also adds a bit of interactability in that sense.
Okay. Okay. So once we are done with our XT prototype and we move ahead to map out our keys journeys with a recorded video of the XDs.
Yeah, so just pause here once, Suraj. Yeah. So this is I would say the culmination of everything that we have been doing up until now into something that is very much which very much helps to gather feedback. And here the stakeholder is just a alias for either your customer or any other stakeholder. So this includes everybody who we want to get some more validation and some more feedback on the design during the design stage before a single piece of code is also written. And the thing that you see here is that the original customer journeys that Suraj had shown earlier, that's sort of put below in the black section, and on the top section it's basically a screen grab of that XD that also Suraj was showing earlier. So it sort of maps that these are the key these are the customer steps, and this is how he's going to actually take it in the design. And if there is any disconnect or if there's any sort of discrepancy there, then we sort of get a lot of feedback here. In fact, this is the stage we get the maximum amount of feedback to refine some steps that we may have taken in the wrong manner, or something that can be improved. And this helps to save a lot of time eventually, because once you start developing, doing changes during development obviously is the slowest process. So that's where we spend most of our time in getting feedback.
And also this is like the most easiest format to share with any stakeholder. So also, so once we are done with this, what we go ahead and do a different kind of step, which is journey POV. Okay. sorry, just checking this video. Yeah. So after that step, what we do is we go ahead and animate the whole flow into a point of view animation. Wait, just let me check. There's some slide over here. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a very first person point of view simulation, or a representation of how we as a designer or a planner are envisioning the application to work or function. This is great for stakeholders as well as for development teams, because here you can see all the interactions, micro movements and behaviors in full action, and the major flows are also evident properly. They should move ahead.
Yeah, let it play for a while. Just,
So even for this step, the user flow also acts like a like a storyboard or a story point, which lets us plan for these kind of simulations and animations. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, Devesh. Yeah.
Great, thanks. So I'll just quickly share my screen. So the next part is about just sort of moving into development and just quickly share my presentation. Yeah. Are you guys able to see it? Suraj, Arnav, can you guys just confirm whether you can see the presentation?
We can see this one.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right. Great. So up until now, we've basically spoken more of design and just to sort of get an idea of, how do we make sure that our designs are always, driven by sort of customer feedback, and how we can gather that feedback at the right kind of stages. And once that happens, we move into development. Now, there's not really much that I've put into the development part, because everybody has their own very different sort of development styles and different development techniques, and also team structures, be it be it with designers, developers, project managers, QAs, etc., etc. So I haven't sort of delved much into that, but obviously I can cover that as well if people would like. But I wanted to basically highlight that in general, development in Agile methodology happens through a manner of sprints, and these sprints are basically either a weekly or a bi-weekly, or even sort of fortnightly efforts, wherein the entire team, the development team, the design team, the project managers, the scrum masters, etc., or even the QA folks, they are all part of defining or achieving a certain goal. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of sprints that different kinds of teams take. They can take either a feature-oriented sprints, wherein they sort of start with a certain feature or a feature list, and they say that we want to build these features out in this particular sprint, and our release will comprise of these, let's say, 5 to 10 features coming together. But very often, what might happen is that even at the end of the sprint, you may have completed those features, but you may not be able to actually test with the user whether that particular sprint or the particular features that you've developed, has it been developed in the right manner or not? Is it even being useful to our customer or not? Is it sort of portrayed in the right manner through design, excuse me, or interaction or not? So that's why what we like to do here inside Jio is to basically do customer journey oriented sprints rather than feature oriented sprints. So if you sort of try to decode this sort of like a Tetris-y looking diagram that I was trying to make, the whole idea is that you have certain key customer or user goals at the very top, and these user goals are, for example, things as Suraj was mentioning, as Suraj had shown, there are examples of either login to goals or 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 a sign up goal or a video playing goal or a homepage goal. There's an example I'll also show after this. But those are the high level goals. Now, with those high level goals, through the customer journey mapping, you've already broken those down into some user steps. And these orange ones are the steps that the user needs to take to achieve those particular goals. Now, all of your features are essentially built to support those user tasks. If your feature is not sort of supporting or not useful in that building that user tasks, then you may not exactly need to put it in the current sprint. You can sort of probably start doing it at a later stage. And the whole idea here is that you have sprint one wherein you design, build, test, review, and then you launch. Then you again do this, and you keep doing this. So every month, or every week, or every twice in a week, or once in 2 weeks, you basically, the build that comes out, it's a complete build. Like even if, for example, you have to go to Bahamas for a vacation for the next 1 year, and you only got 1 week to sort of build it out, your app is still ready. Your app is still complete. It may not have 10, 15 levels. It may not have the various difficulty levels that you wanted to build into it. It may not have a lot of those additional things that you would want to do, and you should definitely do that because that's where the finishing starts coming in. But in any case, even if your developer runs away to Bahamas with, I don't know, his girlfriend or whoever for vacation, you still have a build ready which you can sort of submit and which you can sort of use for your testing or sort of for test or for sort of feedback. And to that end, this is something that I always try to sort of keep in mind, is that demos, they mark the culmination of customer journeys rather than feature completion. And feature completion just happens as a byproduct of this process. So always sort of thinking of having customer-oriented journeys or customer journey-oriented sprints, sorry, is what sort of helps for you to be more agile and having always a demo which comes out. And that's why. So just to give you a quick example of, let's say, a typical gaming application, release plan. Let's say if you are going back and sort of thinking of your release plan for a gaming app, your alpha release, which you'll be giving to to us or for our stakeholder feedback or even for your own testing, right? They should have some key pieces or some key user goals already in place, and then the rest of the releases, the beta or the final releases, can be just some additional features that you want to build out. And just to give you a quick example, for example, the very basic bare bones, most commonly used or most commonly present, set of user tasks and user goals is essentially basically that I have to be able to play a game, and I should be able to play pause or unpause a game. I've only taken these two examples, but of course there could be more. If there is actually a login screen that you specifically have, then you have a login screen, for instance, here. But the user tasks are essentially broken down, and this is what I see is probably the same for 99% of your applications. So you can literally use this template and see that whatever release that you're giving, are you at least covering all of these user tasks or not? So which is, you show your splash screen, you show your welcome screen, you show your start game menu or something like that. You have your game loop, which is running, you have your pause, resume logic, and you have the game over, which takes you back to the home screen. This is a very basic flow, which sort of needs to be present in any application that you submit. And then anything else, which is you need to improve your level design, you need to improve your character selection, you need to have a character selection screen, for example, an environment selection screen. You want to add more shaders, more assets, maybe difficulty selection or some other ton of features. You can keep adding those into your beta beta builds and beta releases, but your base should always be covering this when you're giving an alpha, and that always helps to sort of make the application or get a full view of the application immediately during the first release. And of course, this is then you keep adding more and more features, and maybe you want to do optimizations, finishing touches, maybe some more cosmetic improvements, etc., that you can keep doing and keep building in the final releases. And I think we also keep providing you with feedback around all of this. And more often than not, we end up providing feedback on this also, which is the user tasks are not complete yet. So the demo isn't complete yet, or the alpha build that you sent us, it's not sort of complete yet. And that's only so that at any point of time, what we do is right now, and we are working on getting more and more JioGlasses and sort of sending it to you guys. But in the meantime, what we take up is the application releases that you sent out to us. And I think Arnav or Ishika is going to talk about that after me. What we do is we take all of those applications and we have a few sort of households that we sort of have sort of earmarked whom we test these apps out. We obviously have our key Reliance stakeholders, who sit in the sort of Reliance, top management. These are folks like Akash Ambani or MDA sir or sir. So all of these guys are sort of our stakeholders, and every end of this month, at the end of every month, these releases go to them as well as to our selected sort of customer demi customers, or rather whom we sort of do these testing with. And more often than not, if this game or if this user tasks which are part of these user goals, if they are not complete, then we cannot sort of give that out for feedback, because we immediately know that the user will not be willing to test an app which sort of just starts with the gameplay without any homepage, without any start page. He doesn't know what the tutorial is like, so he doesn't know how to play that game, or he cannot pause or unpause. So these are basic hygiene things, and it sort of forms your application's backbone. And so it's very, very highly recommended that we start with this and include that in the alpha builds very early on, and then sort of add more and more functionality as you sort of keep improving your builds and keep sort of going ahead in your development cycle. Yeah, so just one last slide. Key takeaways on this is to move from being feature oriented to more user oriented. You start achieving your business. In order to start achieving your business goals, you only need to focus on user goals. The moment you start focusing on user goals, you'll start achieving your business goals, because the business is coming from that user. And eventually, your customer journeys, if you start sort of improving or incorporating customer journeys in your application journeys are always going to just complete by themselves. So this is sort of the key takeaway from this whole the first major part of the session. And I think that's all from mine and Suraj's side. And I think Arnav or Ishika can take over for the rest.
Thanks, Devesh. Thanks, Suraj. Very informative. And guys, I hope you enjoyed the session so far. And if you have any questions at all for the first section, please write them, all your queries, all your questions on the chat. And in parallel, maybe Devesh and Suraj can answer your questions. And in the meanwhile, I'll take the next part of the session. I'll just share my screen. Just a quick confirmation that if people can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, so I think now I want to cover a few important guidelines that have already been communicated with all of you. So just wanted to kind of give you a quick walkthrough of how you need to submit your applications to us, so that we can give you the best of feedback and help you in further improving your experience as we kind of prepare for the JioGlass launch towards the end of this year. And also very soon, as Devesh was mentioning, we have already started and are in process of our usability studies, wherein we are using certain applications to get feedback directly from customers. And if your applications are complete at a certain level, that the customer journey is complete, we are happy to include them and give you real customer feedback along with our feedback to further improve the application before we do a mass consumer launch or a commercial launch. So just coming to some key matrices first. So I think last week, we had also shared a form with all of our developers, partners, and people who are already building applications, in which we were asking you to fill in the expected engagement time that you think your application would be able to achieve once we consume. So why we are asking that and why we are emphasizing on the engagement matrices or the engagement time is that because I think just to give you an example, a lot of iPhone users must be here in the group, right? And iPhone also shows you the average time that you are spending on the phone or the average screen time that you're spending on the phone on a daily basis, right? So if you see, I think on an average, people would be spending roughly around 4 to 5 hours, and smartphone being the most important gadget that you use on a daily basis, wherein you are doing phone calls to reminders to calendars to time, and still you end up spending almost 4 to 5 hours of your day on the phone. So we as a company and everyone who's our partner, we are aiming to kind of drive engagement times as we launch in the consumer market. So engagement time is the most important matrix for us. And engagement time, to just to quickly give you an idea what it means, is how much time a user will spend on a daily basis on your application. So if we are able to drive this engagement time and achieve the goal that we have of 90 minutes, so if a family or if a user spends 90 minutes on JioGlass playing around different applications, I think you, us, and everyone is doing a great job, because at the end of the day, it is leading to the adoption and scaling up of XR as a technology, and people have accepted it and will start using it on a daily basis in their daily lives, at least for 90 minutes. So we are targeting 90 minutes of engagement time across all applications. So that is why we are asking you to submit your engagement times, or what is the expected engagement time that you think your application will be able to drive. I think most of you, I think almost 60 to 70 responses are already here. And I think Ishika, if you can just post the form link on the chat. So if there is anyone at all who hasn't filled that form yet, please fill this form. This will really help us to kind of prioritize our support and also help you further improve your engagement times, because at the end of the day, it is the engagement that will make your application successful, and that is how you will be able to monetize on your application. And more the engagement time, and definitely there would be multiple perks that would be given to the people who have the best of engagement times as we launch for the upcoming consumer.
So I've shared the link, where you can enter your engagement metrics. In case you haven't, then please go ahead and fill in this form.
Thanks, Ishika. So just another thing, if you have your application already published on the Oculus Store or any other major XR platform, they also give you information about your engagement times and all other statistics about your application. So you can get this information from there. And if you haven't, Magic Leap also, I think sometime back, enabled this feature. So if you're published on Magic Leap, you can enable that feature to get real-time data from the customers. So that is there. And in case you are developing for the first time or you are not published on any platforms as of now, you can kind of estimate according to your gameplay how much time you think a user will spend. And certain examples have already been shared in the application submission guidelines. You can go through that PDF and you will get an idea on how to estimate the engagement times for your application. Right. And as I said again, driving engagement time is most important for us to make XR successful in India and around the world. The other important information that we are requesting from all our partners and all our developers are dates, because it is very important that you let us know what dates are and what timelines you're working on, because this helps us prioritize our support. This helps us prioritize our time for you, and we basically would love to spend time with you, test your applications on JioGlass and give as much feedback we can till the time you have a JioGlass dev kit in your hand. So it would be really beneficial for all of us if we can plan well, and we can kind of meet our deadlines and timelines. That is basically our number one thumb rule here. So just to define the important dates, which again Ishika will cover in the demo that she'll give you, how to fill in this data for us and also for you to track. The first date, what we say is the demo or the first working build submission date. So this date is irrespective if you have a full customer journey done, or this is basically if you want any quick feedback on the application, this is the first build that you can submit to us, even if everything is not working, but the major gameplay or the major application feature is working. So we can quickly give you our feedback there. Then the second important date for us is the date for alpha release. So we are defining alpha release in which 50% of the must-haves in the content checklist, which is again shared with all of you, and Ishika will also show you again in her demo just after my part. So if you have completed 50% of the must-haves and 50% of the SOW or the content features or the content coverage that you have mentioned to us during the signing of DEA, if that is covered, then that is what we call it an alpha release. And please make sure that when you submit this alpha release to us, the customer journey is complete and the user is not kept hanging. And he can kind of, as Devesh mentioned in his part, that a complete user journey for a simple game could be just like you basically launch the application on JioGlass. You can see the main menu. You can see a tutorial button and you can click on it to understand how the interaction works in the game or in the application. Then you are able to launch the experience and go inside the application, do what is intended to do in the application. You are able to pause it with the back button. You are able to go back to the main menu and you are able to exit the application without any problems. So that is what a complete basic example of a complete customer journey is. So whenever you are sending us your alpha releases, please make sure that the alpha release has a complete customer journey, because this is the first release that will be shared with the customers and the RAL leadership to get direct feedback from them. And also this helps us and for you also to be successful in your evaluation and get a go ahead and get published on the JioGlass App Store, because initially we would like to curate the App Store that we are sending out to our customers so that they get the best of experiences here. The third important date is the date for beta release. So more or less, if you are done with your alpha release, the customer journeys are pretty complete. Then beta release is the time when you can add your additional features or use this time to further polish your application, fix the bugs that we give you as a feedback, and even refine your application or experience more so that we can launch it to the customers. And it's always ready for multiple feedback loops if the Reliance leadership or if our teams ask you to send multiple builds. So this is where we will give you a lot of feedback to further refine and improve your application. And date for production release can be given once all the feedback is incorporated and you think your application is ready and it's now consumer facing. So these dates can be given to us after we kind of give you feedback on beta release, and now you are confident enough that your application is running fine and now it can go for launch. Moving ahead. Another important thing that we are encouraging, as already mentioned, is monthly release cycles. So during these release cycles, every month we'll be releasing an update of the SDK. SDK could have certain mandatory updates. Then I would request all of you to update your applications. Certain could be optional. And we will let you know anyways that if it isn't mandatory or an optional update, because now the companion app that you are seeing from SDK version 4.1.1 and 4.3.1 and 4.3.8 are backward compatible. So even if your applications are built on a previous SDK, they can still work on the latest companion app and can be still sent in the releases. So we will let you know before every SDK release that is this a mandatory release or this is an option release. And anyway, if you are iteratively building your application and if you have added more features, we would recommend for you to update to the latest SDK and keep sending us the builds for the evaluation of new features. And if you have fixed something and you want our feedback, so we would request you to update to the new SDK every month before sending us the release. And please send us alpha release or a beta release, and demo builds you can personally send it to me or Ishika, so we can give you a quick feedback that how the application looks on JioGlass and are you on the right track, and we have the Discord channel for you to raise questions and queries whenever you want. So again, just quick dates here again. So 25th of each month is the time when we plan to release an SDK. By 28th of each month, you should be able to submit an alpha release to us. Our teams here, the Vicious team and the QA team, we can quickly go through your application, see the experience, see how it's working on JioGlass and give you quick feedbacks. Once the feedback is given, whatever feedback can be incorporated on a short term can be incorporated, and the final APK for the release can be shared with us on 6th of each month. And certain feedbacks which are very major and you require time, that can be implemented in the next month's release. So this is the cycle that we are following, and I would recommend everyone to follow this cycle, because at the end of the day, it is the Reliance leadership who also wants to see which applications and experiences are going to the consumer launch. And we would like to include all your applications every month so that you have the visibility there and it is easier for them to kind of evaluate your app, give you feedback. We can evaluate and give our feedback, and the usability studies that we are doing with real customers can also see your app if it's complete at a certain level and give you feedback. So that is what we are doing. And just another highlight that I want to do here is I would request everyone to kind of do a thorough QA before sending us the application. We have a Unity editor emulator. I would request you to test your application there if you don't have a hollow board. If you have a hollow board, you have a second check wherein you can test on hardware Unity emulator, and then you can check on hollow board, which acts as a proxy or a hardware emulator to JioGlass. And then you please send us the builds and we can give you quick feedback on how it looks on JioGlass. However, we have made sure that the SDKs and the companion apps are backward compatible, and you shouldn't face any problem while you are migrating from one version of SDK to the next version of SDK. And whatever you build on hollow board, if it's working fine on hollow board, it should perfectly work fine on JioGlass. So you don't really have to change any code or optimize your application for JioGlass or hollow board or vice versa. And this is our only request to you. And moving forward, Ishika now requesting Ishika to quickly share a screen and just walk you through how we are giving you folder access, how we are giving you application submission guidelines, and how you need to fill this so that we are updated at all times. Please, Ishika.
Thanks, Arnav. Thanks, Suraj and Devesh. Everyone, can you see my screen? And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear, we can see your screen on here.
Okay, great. So, first of all, I just want to thank everyone here. We have started receiving your bills, and it's, amazing to see the progress that you all have made in the last, few months since you have been working with us. And, to take your application to the next level, to, finally publish it on the JioGlass App Store, we've created this whole process for you, so that any feedback that we can give you is formalized, is communicated in the right manner, both from your side and from our side, and that it just makes the whole publishing aspect of your application easier. So, and I also hope that today's session that Suraj and Devesh gave was helpful for you to understand what are the different aspects which need to be covered in the demo build, in the alpha build, in the beta build, and why they are important to us, who are the first people who see your application, to our stakeholders, and then ultimately the consumers. So to start with, I hope everyone here has received access to their OneDrive folders. If you've signed a developer evaluation agreement with you, which has formalized your concept, features, and your date of delivery, then you must have received this folder. In case you haven't, then just reach out to Arnav or me, and we'll make it available to you. So starting with this folder, it has three main components. One is your application versions. These are basically placeholders, and this app version 1.0 or 1.1 is a vocabulary that we use internally. If you choose to call your application by a different build name, please feel free to do so. Whatever makes it easy for you to use the nomenclature and submit your applications to us. Then second is the application checklist. This is basically the master tracker that we use to understand where your progress is going and how we can help you and give you the right support to ultimately publish your application. And the third is basically the application submission process. It's this entire process that I'm verbally talking about. It's documented in this particular PDF. So at any point you feel confused or you don't know which step to follow, this is going to be your guide to help you submit your applications here. So just to give you an example of this folder, so this needs to basically have your APK, your changelog. The changelog needs to have your application name. It needs to have the SDK version, any new features you've added, bugs you fixed, or that there are certain bugs which currently exist in your application, but that they will be resolved in the next version that you do send to us. So coming back to this, and of course, as Arnav did mention in his last slide, that we encourage you to do a thorough QA before you submit your application to us. So it's really important that you send us this video file of either a screen recording of your Unity editor or from your phone, which just shows to us that your application is actually working. So we don't have to sort of even go the extra mile and come back a little disappointed that this application that you've sent to us is not really working on either the HoloBoard or JioGlass. So coming back to this folder and to the application checklist. This has 5 major components, but I want to just focus on the proposed content in the DEA, Tesseract feedback, must-haves and good-to-haves, and important dates and metrics. So in the proposed content in the DEA, it's important to basically have your name, the name of your application, the content coverage that you've mentioned in the evaluation agreement, features. So, for example, if you are creating a game, then what are the different color schemes that you're using or difficulty levels that you've incorporated in your game? Or, for example, how if I want to search for a particular, game or an aspect of your game within the application itself, how do I go about that process? Content coverage, to give you an example, is more, on the lines that, for example, you're creating an education application and you've covered 3 different subjects of biochemistry and physics. Then how many topics or modules do you cover within these different subjects? Say, for example, you're covering 6 topics within bio, 10 topics within physics, and 12 topics within chemistry. So just for us to understand, the content that you're bringing on board, how much progress has been made on that, and where can we sort of help you to accelerate that development process. And of course, as Suraj and Devesh just showed you the different screens that are very important when you're building your customer journey, that whole template. So if you can, mention your screen names here, it will be great for us to know what this application may actually look like. And of course, side by side, whatever you have mentioned in the features, the content coverage, and the screen name section, please just mark it here as complete. So for example, if you're saying that you want 3 difficulty levels, so, and you have, a search option. So whenever that particular feature is complete, just request you to add yes or a no if that feature has not been completed. Or for example, you have said that you want to create, 10 modules. Yeah, if you want to have 10 modules in physics and you have not been able to create all, so you can here just say that yes, but only added 7 for now, 3 under development. So you can just let us know so that we know what we're looking forward to when we test your application. Then as soon as you submit your APK here, and this is something which we've been following for all the bills that we've received so far, I create a tab here, which is basically your application version. We give you the feedback which is which we feel needs improvement in your application, and of course there's a tab which says if it's been implemented by you or not, and if it hasn't or has been implemented, what are your sort of comments on it or an explanation for why it has been done or not. So for example, some common problems that we do face is that we see the made with Unity screen. Sometimes the back and the home button with the controller are not integrated. Or for example, most of you don't use the entire sort of the field of view which is available to you, or there is Z-fighting of 3D models in a particular screen. So here we give you the feedback, and when you do receive it and send us the next build, then you just have to let us know if that particular feedback that we gave you has been implemented in your application or not. So for example, Meet with Unity screen has been removed. Yes. The back and the home button has been implemented. Yes. You can say that, okay, this is, I would say this is no, for example, and you can just say that, we don't have access to the dev kit, but we are still figuring it out in the Unity editor. So we know that this is something which will come in the next release that you do send to us. Then you can say that, ensure that you're using more FOV. Yes, we've used the entire field of view or that pink line as that was shown completely. So that it's easy for the user to navigate within the application. And of course, if the Z fighting has been corrected or not. Then I come back to must-haves and good-to-haves. So must-haves are just, basic hygiene and for sanity check of the application. The whole purpose of these particular must-haves is to basically never let a user hanging. So for example, if your application requires an internet connection to function, but for example, I start using your game and my phone is not connected to the Wi-Fi, and I'm a little confused because I'm not even aware that it's not connected to the Wi-Fi, but the game is also not working. So as a user, I'm just stuck somewhere in the middle, and this particular problem has also not been communicated by you as a developer or from the application to me. So my immediate response would be that I just want to get away from this application and probably not use it again. So the idea here is to just let us know and also to communicate to the user in the right manner that where are they stuck, how can they proceed if they're stuck from a particular problem, and how do we essentially complete their entire journey. So as and when you do complete a certain aspect in your application, just mark it here in green so that we know that, this is complete. And then, of course, there are certain good to have aspects of your application also, which if you do want to implement, please feel free to, but there is no particular compulsion to do so. Then I come to important dates and metrics. So Arnav had, just mentioned and emphasized on these particular dates and dates. This is simply because, at this point in our entire developer growth journey, we are now in conversation with about 100 of you. So, and while we're absolutely excited about so many of you joining us in our entire journey to build content for JioGlass, it's also a little, we want to simplify that process for ourselves and to also give you support in the right manner. So it's really important for us to know what is the proposed date. Now, the proposed date is basically the date that you have added in your evaluation agreement. But, sometimes there are delays. There is a pandemic which is, happening in this background behind us. Most of us are actually at this point, suffering from it. So of course, we understand there are delays in the actual submission of your application. But these two dates are very important for us to know so that we know how delayed your application is and at what point do we have to sort of assign a developer support engineer to help you. So it could be that, for example, your proposed date is 15th April, but we know that your application is not going to come before 30th April, which is fine, but you need to just let us know. Then the date for alpha release. So at what point do you believe that one entire user journey will be complete in your application? Just let us know that will be done by 15th of May, for example. And then your beta release will be done by 20th of May. And as and when these actual submissions start coming, we will keep adding these dates in this particular section. Engagement metrics is something that, you are already filling a form. So we'll add that information here, but also request you to, think about the time that you expect the user to spend, and please add that information here. And of course, any production release date is something that we will add basis the feedback that is given to us by Devesh's team that yes, this application is perfect and we're ready to publish it on the App Store. So yeah, that's that from my side. I do hope all of you follow this process. On an average, we receive about 10 APKs every day. And it gets really cumbersome for us to sometimes coordinate all of these APKs through the different channels through which we communicate with all of you. So it would be extremely helpful for us if you can directly upload your applications on the folders that we've shared with you. And this is also the space that we use to give you the direct feedback. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Rishika. Thanks everyone for being here. Take care, and we see you for the next session very soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Have a good day. Bye.